¿Cuántos de ustedes han visto la revista National Geographic? Yo creo que la mayoría. Hoy estamos con Callie y ella nos va a contar cosas muy chéveres de su trabajo en National Geographic como fotógrafa. Muchas gracias, Callie, por participar en Ciencia, su merced.
Gracias.
How you ended up in National Geographic? How long have you been working in this great place?
So I've actually been here for 6.5 years, working with National Geographic Kids, and I'm actually a book designer. So I design, it means I do the layout, which I get a Word document with a manuscript, and then I get a folder of photos that matches that manuscript, and then try to match the photos to the story and put it in a layout in a way that kids will find engaging and exciting and will make them want to keep learning and turning the page. It's tough to get kids interested in nonfiction, so we try to kind of trick them into learning by making our designs really fun. So that's what I've been doing for the last 6.5 years. But the way I got here was sort of a roundabout track. I was always interested in animals and nature when I was a kid. I wound up studying in college architectural design. So I was learning how to spatially conduct a person through a space. And so I found this job at National Geographic kind of coincidentally. I came in to visit a friend's mom, and I brought my portfolio. And
just in case, you never know.
Just in case. And I was like, hey, while we're here, do you think we could look on your intranet and find out if there's an art director in maybe like the kids space or something? And we look it up and we find the art director for the division and find out what floor she works on. And so we went down to the floor and literally walked down the hallway holding my portfolio. And it's like, hi, are you Eva? Are you Eva? Do you know where Eva is? And finally someone was like, yes. And I was like, hi, I'm Callie Broaddus. I'm a designer. I've always loved National Geographic since I was little, and this is my portfolio. If you ever have a job open, please call me. And a month later, she called me and said, I just found your portfolio on my desk. I don't remember how it got there, but can you come in and interview? So it was one of those...
What?
Just, sometimes that just hitting the pavement, like walking in somewhere, literally gets you in the door. That's how I wound up here. So after 6.5 years of designing for Nat Geo Kids, I felt that I still wasn't 100% where I wanted to be. I wasn't completely connected with what I loved growing up. And even though I'm designing books about animals, snow leopards, rainforests, clouds, like every cool topic you can think of, I wanted to try to find a way to get all the way back to my roots. Like I had it figured out in 4th grade and I should have trusted myself then. So I started looking for other avenues to tell stories, and I picked up my camera. I'd been shooting professionally in the sports photography world for a while and started trying to tell stories about animals, wildlife, and conservation. I always hated writing, but I like doing what challenges me. So I decided to get a writing gig. And I started writing stories for a local magazine and photographing them as well. And one of my first stories was on land conservation easements. And the more I dove into land conservation, the more I thought, wow, this is really where we need to be. This is what we need to be doing. And so I started, I was writing these stories, doing the photography, and just slowly growing that side of my professional life. I don't know actually how to jump into this, but ultimately I decided that it really is where I want to be. So I've put in my notice here, and I'm going to be jumping off a cliff basically and going full-fledged into storytelling around land conservation, science, and then marrying what I love from this job, which is the youth empowerment and youth education. So getting young people interested in nature, learning to love it because you protect what you love and you love what you know, and so that's what I'm going to be launching into next, using kind of all these skills and avenues that I've pursued over the last few years. So with that said, my next project is going to be creating the world's first fully youth-funded nature reserve.
the full combo
Yes.
from design, photography, and then and you keep hearing that, for example, one of the main causes of climate change in the tropics is deforestation.
Yeah.
So
Habitat destruction.
habitat destruction. So I would say that one of the main things to do is to protect those lands.
So it's one of those winding path things where I never really had a North Star. I didn't really know. I didn't have a plan, I should say. I guess I had a North Star in that I knew I wanted to get back to nature somehow. But having made the decisions, the career choices I'd made, I didn't exactly know how to get there. And little by little, I've worked my way into, I think, the right place. So I'm hoping that with this project, I'll be able to really dive further into the photography aspect to document the new species that are being found on the site that we're going to be exploring in Ecuador. And then to bring those stories to share them with the world and share them with foreign governments, the international conservation community, and the international just not conservation community, because that's who needs to hear it most, and tell these stories about youth who are engaging in this space and are passionate about protecting the planet, because they're the ones who have to live in it next.
And we will be waiting for your stories.
Thanks.
Anécdota científica.
I met Callie in the middle of Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta. It was like serendipity thing. Do you have any story or a place, some experience or anecdote?
So, okay, the trip that I took to Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, I was going to just to photograph the species there, to collect assets for a nonprofit. I like to think of myself as a brave person. And the very first night we were there, my guide Angel and I were walking through the woods looking for frogs and doing night stuff. And he, when we were done, he said, "Okay, would you like me to walk you back to your hut?" It's a half a mile away, so it's a 10-minute walk. And I said, "No, it's fine. I'm good. I've got a headlamp." And he's like, "Okay, are you sure? Because fantasmas, monstruos, jaguars, pumas." And I was like, "I'm good. I'm fine." And I start walking, and he goes back to his place, and I start walking off by myself. And I realize within probably 50 feet of walking that I am absolutely terrified, because I don't have his big flashlight anymore. I realize he's the one with all the light, and I had just one little headlamp here and then an extra headlamp in my hand. And I have a half a mile to walk.
What if you both fail? You'll be trapped in darkness.
And they were really dim. They were not strong lights. And so as I'm walking back, I start hearing all the sounds of the rainforest, and you realize how fully immersed in the wild you are, and that anything could happen, and that there is no one around to hear you or to help you. And it was this moment where I realized that you really have to surrender yourself to your surroundings, and that fear is a state of mind, and you have to learn to conquer it. I totally failed. I was terrified. And, walked the whole half mile back singing, talking to the animals that I knew were out there. I'm like, "Hey, big bad human coming through. You don't want to mess with me, just so you know." And so I walked back, and I got back, and I was like, that was horrible. I hated that. I don't like being scared. And so I was like, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to tell him to walk me back. So we go out the next day, do the same thing, herping, and I'm looking for amphibians and reptiles. And I actually brought a bigger light that time. So I brought my strobe. It's a big flash, and it has what's called a modeling light on it, which is it basically acts like a floodlight. That it's huge, really strong light. And so then I was like, you know what, actually, I can do this, because now I've got this big light. I am set. And so he's like, "You want to walk home?" I was like, "Good. I've got this tonight. I'm good." And I start walking back, and within 1 minute, the battery on my strobe dies completely. And this time I left my second headlamp at home, so now I just have the one really weak headlamp And I have a half a mile to walk back. We'd just been photographing tarantulas and scorpions and snakes. And like on the path, I stepped on a tarantula that night by accident. And so I'm
So
like,
we're like, oh, this is it.
shit. But now I'm like, he's gone. I can't go get him. And so I'm just screwed. I have to start walking. And so I look up, and immediately a mammal crosses the path in front of me, and I have no idea what it was because my light was so dim that I couldn't see it. And
Let's say it was a mouse.
it was a mouse. It was totally a mouse. But and you know, it walked across, it saw me, it stopped. It kind of like went down the path a little bit, stopped again, and then it just went down the hill. And it was one of those moments of like, I'm in their world and they don't want anything to do with me. And it was actually, even though I was absolutely terrified, it actually helped me feel more connected and more ready to cope with the next half mile. Because I'm like, they're cool with me being here. It's okay.
Callie, thank you very much for participating in Ciencia Café.
Ciencia fa su merced.
Sierra Nevada.
Oh, look at this
Washington,
cool little
D.C.
beetle.
What?
It's actually super cute. Your lens is too small to see
That's the
it.
anecdote. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I love about
What is
wildlife
that? Oh, wow.
photography is you start to notice all the little stuff. It's like a miniature ladybug that's very
Wow.
pale.
Si quieres ser notificado cuando salga un video nuevo, suscríbete a nuestro canal oprimiendo el botón rojo y después la campanita.